Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. This is Catherine Carrigan. I'm a medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, sign up for my newsletters. You're going to get a lot of free stuff, including coupons for discounts on your sessions. I'm really thrilled today to introduce to you one of my dear friends, Lynne Cockrum-Murphy. Lynne is a Theta Healing instructor and fellow Amazon #1 best-selling author. Her two books, Living Hope, Steps to Leaving Suffering Behind, and Unfolding the Mystery of Self, We Are Never Alone, are Amazon #1 bestsellers. And she's currently working on a fiction series. You can find out more about her work at cockrum-murphy.com. Welcome, Lynne.
Hi, Catherine. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Well, what we're excited to hear about today is Theta Healing. So, Lynne, what is Theta Healing?
It is a focused modality where we use theta brainwave state and communicate with the divine to create change or healing.
Okay, now for our listeners and those who don't know, you have brainwaves. A lot of people have heard about brainwaves. So right now, if you're listening, you're probably mostly in beta. So beta brainwaves are what your brain produces when you're awake. When you're asleep, you go into delta, and that's very slowed down brainwaves. And when you go into alpha brainwaves, you relax. And theta is somewhere in between alpha and delta. So, Lynne, can you share with us a little bit more about theta brainwaves and what happens when your body is in a theta brainwave state?
It's a place that we practice. I teach it and we practice it because it takes a while for people to become very accustomed to it. Originally, when I taught meditation, I only taught people to go to the alpha state. Very calm, pleasant place, but I didn't know going to theta is deeper, 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 and that you can create amazing change or manifest from that state. So now that I know, that's exactly what I do, and I show others. When we stay in that state, our body is very content, relaxed. It's to me, it's a higher state of consciousness, and it's where the bliss is. Delta would be that way too, but maintaining theta it's a practice. But then once you've got that, you can have that at the grocery store or in the car, in traffic. It's a wonderful ability to develop.
Yeah. Now, I know that delta brainwaves, if I remember correctly, are somewhere between 4 to 8 hertz. And when we're in delta, again, you're asleep. You may be relaxed, but you're not conscious. So that theta is right above that delta state, correct?
It's right next to it. And ideally, we want to be in theta for this kind of work, and also for my meditations. But sometimes we do slip into delta when you go really extremely deep, but that isn't necessarily the objective. With theta, you empower yourself, you heal your body, and the world opens up.
Now, Lynne, I know that a lot of people, if you look at their brainwaves, if you hook them up to an EEG machine to read brainwaves, a lot of people are not able to produce theta brainwaves. So a lot of people know they should relax, but they literally can't. So for example, and this is my understanding from having studied the brain for 24 years, for a lot of people, for example, who have a family history of alcoholism, their brains are not producing theta. Or a lot of people who have anxiety, their brains are not producing theta. So what can you tell us about the people who are, they want to relax, they want to get into that deep state, but their brains can't produce that?
Coming from a family with a history of alcoholism, I would say that you can retrain yourself. And having had a background with decades of depression, which I haven't experienced for about 20 years, but it was my early life, that yeah, you can change anything and everything. Sometimes it takes perseverance, but it's so doable. So I would say on my website are guided meditations, and some of them involve this process of walking yourself up, 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 up to this higher state. And if there are worthiness issues about being in total light, total love, higher states of consciousness, then you work with myself or someone like me to change that, because it's not a worthiness issue. It's a divine right of all of humanity. And everyone can get there. Probably not if a person is currently using non-medicinal drugs, like self-medicating is what I'm referring to. That would be a problem. I wouldn't recommend right then. But I've even seen people on depression medicine be able to do this.
Yes. And you bring up an important point, because a lot of people are self-medicating to get their brain into that deeply relaxed state. So this is why a lot of people drink alcohol, or a lot of people take drugs in order to get to that state. Whereas if you work with Lynne, with Theta Healing, you can get there naturally. Now, how does Theta Healing actually work? How do you help people to get to these very deep states where their brains are deeply relaxed?
So there's the creator of this program, her name is Vienna Stibble. She lives in Montana. She teaches worldwide, and she has a method that you can purchase, like you can buy a DVD or CD of it, or you can train with someone like me, and you practice it. So it's there's a little bit of a component to it that's almost like a hypnosis, but you're going in, you're going deeper, or higher. And most people that I did it with a woman who's about 68 or so years old the other day, first time ever. And she was so peaceful. After I don't know, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, she was so relaxed, peaceful, and happy. So without ever having done it before, she could. Occasionally I'll run into a student who'll move into that state and go, oh, I'm not worthy. And so we stop and address that, and then it becomes easier and easier. So it is a practice, and on my website are guided meditations to walk you into that.
That's beautiful. So what are some of the benefits of Theta Healing?
That you can change anything rapidly. So when a client comes in, I may just ask them what it was that they wanted to work on today, and that'll be our focus. But sometimes we do a body scan, and that's where I go up into Theta and then into through the crown of the crown chakra, into that being, and scan their whole body looking for information. And it'll tell me if there's illness. It'll tell me about anxieties, fears, all kinds of information. So that's why I say that it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And then I ask the person, well, which one of these do you want to go with? Because I might see a wound by the heart, or I might see tension in the legs, or frenetic activity in the brain. And I let the client guide from there. So once we know what they want to work on, as they talk, I listen for beliefs that don't serve them, or that are, the antithesis of what they're looking for. So if I'm hearing, what one of the really common ones is, besides the worthiness one, is I don't belong. There's another one. It slipped my mind. But anyway, there are things like that are really common themes. I must sacrifice myself for others. So when I hear those, I talk with the person to get down to what is really at the base of that. And once we know that, then I go into Theta and I ask Creator, whatever you want to call that, the universe, the divine, God, I ask Creator to remove it and exactly how I want it removed and what I want it replaced with. I will tell the person the replacement, like, I am a child of God. I am a part of God. I am the same light and energy that Creator is. I have a birthright to be here, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'll ask the person if they want those. If they want them, then just have them downloaded right in. So that's part of why this is so fast, is we can take a lifelong depression, find out what's under it, ask Creator to pull it, and give a person immediately all kinds of new goodness and positive feeling that they may never have had. You know, if you never experienced unconditional love, it's not going to be something you carry inside you. But through Creator, we can download it right now and a person can have it immediately. And then maybe we just work a little bit on adjusting and getting comfortable, because it's so much change so fast. It's not like working with a therapist. And I say that also as a licensed substance abuse counselor. You know, I've done therapy with people in treatment centers, and this is faster. So again, at the end, we do a little bit to accommodate, work with the neural pathways, close down some of the other ones, do some integration so that there's ease and comfort with all the change.
Now, Lynne, can you give it some examples from your own practice? What sort of issues, mental, physical, spiritual, that have you healed with Theta Healing?
One example that I want to mention with myself, because when I teach it in the very first book for this class, we do genetic work. So we reprogram DNA that has genetic flaws. By doing that, I have changed in 3 years my eyesight from having a disorder called Fuchs dystrophy that I was told I would have to have my corneas replaced in 5 years. Well, that was 10 years ago. And now the doctor says to me, I don't know why you bring that up.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the other one is the astigmatism that my mother had, that I had. And with my last visit, they said, you know, you don't really have astigmatism now. So that's a personal level of healing. For others, I have clients with depression and anxiety. We find relief. I have clients who come in because they're unhappy with family and relationships, and we create change for them to where everything just kind of calms down. People come to me when they want to change jobs, but they're afraid to make that leap. Wanting to end a marriage, but afraid to make that leap. We had several women who have walked away from abusive relationships. And I have to say, for me, as a healer, what a blessing to see that. So, there are all kinds of things. People and their mothers, you know, all the weight that their mothers still carry in their head. That's another one that we work on. We also work on ancestral beliefs because, you know, our genetic programming often comes from our ancestors. And we can clean that up and release that. Like a belief in poverty. Well, my family's always lived in poverty. You know, we've always been on the edge. And you have to work hard for your money. So just beliefs. And we can change beliefs and programs. And we can change those. They change fast. The world opens up. It's amazing. See, I think the amount of change that also occurs, I see sometimes reflected in a person comes in and they identify what they want to work on. We work for an hour and they're like, I came in today to talk about, do you remember what I came in to talk about? Because it's gone, the issue is gone. And then they're like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that feels, that feels pretty good. Gosh, there have been so many people over the last few years. It's hard to say who else, what else, but Physical, so we can heal. Mental, we can change our thinking. Spiritual, just doing that movement into theta brainwave state with the client is moving them into a place that many of them never experienced spiritually. And then emotional. We don't have to stay with whatever emotional states we've had. Come into a place where you're really at choice. And if you take the classes, then you're really empowered to do the work for yourself. And I always encourage my students to work on yourself and then only come to me or another theta healer when you're stuck. That happens to all of us.
Absolutely. Now, Lynne, I know that scientific research shows that when we go into an alpha state, and again, there's beta where you're awake, and I believe beta is something around 14 to 25 hertz, and alpha is just below that. So alpha, again, you're awake, but you're more relaxed, and theta is even deeper level of relaxation than alpha. So the scientific research shows that when you're in an alpha brainwave state, you're going to be relaxed. What happens to the brain? What happens to a person's brain when they're in this theta healing state? Why is it such a profound state for healing?
Well, I might be stumped with that question. I think regular thinking doesn't occur there. And in regular thinking, you tend to just go around in circles. I didn't do enough. It wasn't enough. I'll try harder next time. Oh, woe is me. No, I can do this. Just circles. But when you're in the theta state, you can hear higher guidance. That leads into a type of work that I do, and that's doing readings and channeling. From that place, I can hear the divine making recommendations. I can talk to my archangels or your angels and create and bring that information forward. So I think the hearing is part of the gift, besides that there's the healing for the body in that state, there's the bliss, and then there's the lack of ordinary thought. So it's also the meditative state that monks who have, like Buddhist monks who meditated for decades, it's where they go. It's not ordinary meditation.
Now, Lynne, how can people learn theta healing?
You can buy the Theta Healing book. You can go to Vienna Stibble's website and purchase some of her things. They're also on Amazon. There are CDs, DVDs. You can take a class from me or do a session with me, and I can teach you in one session how to do that.
And when we go into meditative state, because I know one of the things you and I have in common is that we are daily meditators. So when we meditate, are we also going into a theta state?
I do now. I didn't originally. It was alpha, but now that, I go easily into theta, that's my meditation. And it's changed my meditation a lot from what it was 5-10 years ago. Absolutely. I don't have to work so hard or wait so long to get into it. It's very immediate now. So, I used to think that I needed to meditate 45 minutes at a time. No, not now. Changed everything.
Yeah. I have to tell a personal story because several years ago, I had to have a minor outpatient surgery. And so what I did was I simply put on meditation music and I went into a meditative state. I didn't want to take drugs, and I went into a meditative state. And when the surgery was over, I was so deeply relaxed that when the surgeon was finished, I think he was a little worried that I was totally out of it. And he said to me, he said, "Catherine, what's your mother's phone number?" And I was like, oh, 912. And then I rattled off the phone number because I was completely conscious. But I think by practicing the meditative state on a regular basis, we can go there more easily. So what are some suggestions that you have for people to be able to call up this meditative state when they need it? So for example, when you go into surgery as an outpatient, you definitely need to be totally relaxed, right? But there may be others. When you're in a plane, you're in a train, or what have you. What can people do to call up this theta state very quickly?
I think to establish yourself in it repeatedly, daily, several times a day, so that it's a natural state for you. It's not an effort to get there. I know I move myself there just automatically, consciously. And I think it's nice that you brought that up, because also besides surgery, there's a lot of trauma and drama in the world right now. The hurricanes, I understand one is headed towards Ireland and the UK right now. There's so much going on that if you're going to watch the news, or if your family's involved in any fashion, then you want to have a self-calming technique. And moving into theta, moving into meditation will do that. I don't know, did I fully answer your question?
Absolutely. And you brought up something really important, Lynne, because it's very easy, vibrationally speaking, to go into the chaos, to go into the fear, to go into the worry. So to have some sort of practice where you can pull yourself out of the chaos, out of the fear, out of the worry, so you can go into this peaceful vibration, because all healing is vibrational healing. Yeah.
Yeah, conscious awareness is what so much of this is about. Being conscious of your thoughts, being conscious of what you're creating, and using theta healing or any spiritual technique to keep yourself in that place changes everything.
Now, why is it possible to manifest more quickly and easily when we're in that theta healing state?
So for some people, it might be like, I'm talking with my higher self, or I can access my higher self through the theta state. I also think that when I talk to Creator in that state, and I say, this is what I like, and this is in my life now, and I bring that energy down into my life, and I visualize it in my life now, and I tell Creator, this is what I'm ready to create now. That's co-creating. And it's very powerful from that place. So you have to be more responsible than usual, too. But it's a lot different than just praying, than just asking. Being in theta state empowers it to a whole different level. You're not separate from Creator in that place. You're part of all that is.
That's a very profound statement. Now, Lynne, I know our listeners want to hear more about your 2 Amazon #1 bestsellers. Tell us about your first Amazon #1 bestseller, Living Hope, Steps to Leaving Suffering Behind. What is that book about?
This is a lot about my story and how, coming from a dysfunctional family and a lot of trauma in my early years, why it is that I have resilience and why it is that I became the being that I am today. It's about that process and the tools. So that's why where it says steps to leaving suffering behind, those steps I talk about in here, and I give a lot of really concrete material. It is a sad story at times, but it's an empowering story, because you see no matter where you've been or where you're at, there's no limit to what you can do for yourself.
Can you give our listeners some examples? What are some of the techniques that you suggest in your book to leave suffering behind?
A spiritual practice, of course. Studying people who have what you want and understanding what it is that they have, and then incorporating that into your life. Being malleable, being flexible. Just on and on. I did a lot of reading and studying. I recommend that. And saying no flat out. I will not have so-and-so in my life. Not so necessarily a person, but a lifestyle. I will not have trauma and drama in my life. So the book is full of them, but that's 4 or 5.
That's really great information. Now, tell us about your second Amazon #1 bestseller, Unfolding the Mystery of Self, We Are Never Alone. What is that book about?
This book is about spiritual path and how really get to have whatever spiritual path we choose to create for ourselves. Seems like in the past, it was that you needed to do religion. And it hasn't been that way for a while. I talk about different things that I've studied, having been raised Christian, but then becoming a Buddhist, and now being eclectic. I don't call myself any one thing. So that process and how everyone has the right to do it their way. You can work with the teacher. Yogis and gurus, that's very much their path. You follow a teacher, maybe for lifetimes. So I talk about Babaji and Jesus as the greatest teachers, some of the greatest teachers, Buddha. But you also don't have to have a teacher or stay with one teacher forever. So I talk about all those different options, but I also talk about all the strange things that have happened, the visions and how my road was changed by that. And the subtitle, We're Never Alone, is because we're not alone. We think that what we see with our eyes is what is real. And there are so many layers of beyond that what we see is not very real. I think I like the movie The Matrix because it helped us see that in a form. But then there's also...
I think that statistics, even science will acknowledge that only 3% of the known universe can be measured or quantified in any way. So it's scientific research that 97% of all that is cannot be quantified.
That's a great statistic. Thanks for that. That's wonderful. The other thing is that I've had so many relatives visit me. My grandmother, such a strong influence in my life, has visited me many times and I've been there as support. That when one of my aunts passed, she came and thanked me for being there with her just before her death. On and on, there are stories, including one that my sister wrote about our mother visiting her right after she passed, and the amount of comfort that my sister got from that. So to me, the fact that I can turn at any moment and talk to a guide, an angel, go into Theta and ask for direction, it's all there all the time and possible. And I like to encourage people to have that. That's why I teach. You don't have to wait for someone else to do it for you. You can have it for yourself. So that book has a lot of that. Ram Dass is someone I talk about in the book and how influential he was. Yogananda. All those wonderful influences, and that you can have the gifts that they have. Perseverance and practice.
Now, Lynne, how does developing a spiritual practice such as prayer and meditation, how does that actually help with our health? We're here talking about natural healing. So when people develop these spiritual practices, how do you feel it helps with a person's health?
There's a natural progression towards good health when you're living in spiritual communication with your full self. I think that habits that we have that don't serve us, that we're a little more likely to become aware of them and drop them. And I see it also even in, there's a spiritual practice I've been doing for the last 40 days, and it makes me more aware of my thoughts. And if our thoughts are a lot of what controls our body and creates disease in our body, then by watching those thoughts, changing my behaviors, my body heals and changes. So it's all, those things are not as separate as we think of. They're very interconnected.
Now, Lynne, I know that you and I both make a living as a healer. And I had lunch with someone today who wanted to advance her healing practice. And one of the things that I was talking about is that when you do this for a living, it's not just what you do, it's who you are. And you have a whole practice. So for example, myself, I wake up, I pray, I meditate, I ask for guidance about what color to wear, because that could be beneficial for me or the person that people I'm doing healing work. I've asked for guidance about what crystals to wear, and I pray about literally everything that I do. How do you live your life as a healer in order to be healthy and happy and to bring in the highest vibration for your clients?
Great question. I became a vegetarian when I was 19 years old, so I've been a vegetarian, I'm not going to do the math right now, but over 40 years. And I think that affects your vibrations. I experimented with drugs when I was quite young, gave that up at age 25. Again, decades ago. I start my day with, when I open my eyes, I set an intention for the day, express some gratitude, go outside and do prana breath work, come inside and do meditation, do this new practice that I'm 40 days into. And a lot of the guidance now, like say deciding what color or what crystal, a lot of that just comes naturally, that you'd be getting ready and it's like, yep, it'd be right to wear that blouse this time. It would be perfect to have this crystal. That kind of, it doesn't take much thinking or attraction now, right? It just kind of comes naturally. In fact, that's one of the wonderful things that I'm getting used to now, is that I often thought that procrastination was me just delaying and worrying, and what I'm learning is it's actually more divine timing. That I had created something for an older relative, but then I didn't finish it and I set it aside. And I felt bad about that. And then 2 years went by, and I was very, very ill and restricted in his life. I finished the gift and I'd sent it to him. And my God, he called me the other day, and the joy that he experienced through that. So it wasn't that I was doing something wrong. It was moving into divine timing. And I didn't have the foresight to see that at that moment. So I trust a lot more about my day. Oh, it's time to call this person. Oh, this person's calling me. Or it's time to reach out, or you better write that today because you don't want to lose that thought. So some of it I do purposefully because I know it works for me, but then there's that living in the flow where you're connected and you have a lot of knowing.
Yeah. Now, what you're really talking about is consciously choosing your vibration. Now, we're still human, so I still have bad days. I still get upset. I still can eat the wrong food by accident or by choice. So what can we do to use Theta Healing to shift our vibration when we recognize that we've fallen where we need not be? So we can get depressed, we can get anxious, we can get worried, we can notice that we're ill. So how can Theta Healing help you shift into this uplifted vibration?
I would start with a lot of downloads, going to Theta State, and ask for those things to be downloads. Because we don't, in Theta, we tend to not do affirmations so much anymore. We have them downloaded, so it's part of me. I don't have to practice it every day. I just know that I'm living intentionally. I make good choices. I forgive myself when I choose a glass of wine. It's okay. Or choose not to exercise for 2 days. So we download all of those so that you've got a lot more peace and awareness and positivity in you. And then working with a Theta healer to pull the programs that really don't serve you. Like I've been in a rut for 7 years, and I'm stuck. We can change that. So downloads, I think, are awesome. They make it easy to pull those beliefs once you have the structural support, emotional support. Trying to think if there's anything else.
And what exactly is a download?
Sorry.
Okay, what is a download?
It is a new belief, program, or feeling that you didn't have previously. Like I mentioned, the unconditional love one. And through Creator, we install it, and it's yours. So the unconditional love one is a really good one, but maybe it's not believing in possibility because your parents always said, straighten up, that's not real. You can't do that. You're not built to be a ballerina. But we know that people have done amazing things forever. And you can have those possibilities too. So we download them. Thank God there's a creator, there's that energy that does all this because it's beyond us in human form.
Now, how do you as a Theta healer actually work with divine healing energy in your practice?
I go into Theta state and I ask creator to do it. So sometimes I'll put my hands on a client or hold their hand because I want that exchange of energy. But it isn't my energy that's doing the healing. It's the life force. It's prana, it's chi. It's the life force of the creator of the universe, and that is transmitted. When I did Reiki and color therapies and some of the other things that I did over the decades, that energy moved through my hands, and now it's like it's more direct. I talk to creator, and it goes to the person. Doesn't really have to go through me. I can do it the other way too, because my hands heat up and all that. So sometimes I will channel a message. Sometimes a person wants a reading because they want to talk. A woman recently wanted to talk to her deceased husband. There's a fellow that comes to me who gets to talk to his wife or gets messages from his wife. But, he talks to her all the time anyway. He just wants some reassurance. So there's those kinds. And plus, being in Theta state, I can hear if a person is saying, no, it's this, I can hear, well, it's also this. And if we resolve this, that other piece will just dissolve.
Right. Now they're talking about being a medium. And so as my understanding is being a medium is when you actually speak to people who've passed on and who are deceased.
Yeah.
So when did you realize that you were a medium?
Trying to think if it was with Theta when I started studying Theta healing or if it was before that. I think it was before that because I've been, an empath and intuitive all my life. But, it didn't always dawn on me. In fact, it wasn't until a friend who kept asking me things. And finally I said, do you think I'm intuitive? She's like, absolutely. That's when I decided, I am. I'll accept this. I've been told I'm a seer. So those terms just kind of help us understand who we are, what we are, and part of the process of being comfortable with being the unique beings that we are.
Now, Lynne, you're also a licensed substance abuse counselor, and you have a doctorate in educational leadership. So as we talked about, a lot of people who have trouble with drugs and alcohol are not able initially especially when they're in throes of addiction, for their brains to make these theta brainwaves on their own. So why is theta healing so especially helpful for people struggling with drugs and alcohol addiction?
So much of the solution for addiction is in finding that spiritual, whatever you want to call that, power, and holding on to that, trusting it, letting it carry you. In the treatment center, I would teach clients how to meditate, but only to the alpha state. These are people that had been clean and sober days or weeks or months. So I didn't push for the highest states. People that come to me now that are in recovery, they've been clean for more than a year. And so they can do this pretty easily. Again, sometimes worthiness comes up, where they're still carrying some shame about their past. But those are the people that I would take up into Theta and teach them so that they can have that all the time.
Now, how can a person, if you're listening, how can we tell when our brain is producing theta brainwaves? How can we tell when we're in that theta healing state?
It does take practice because there are pretty high states of consciousness before that are pretty blissful, especially if you're hanging out with the angels and the level where Christ and Buddha and those beings are. So you can go there and think like, well, that's it. But the space we're talking about with Theta, there are no people there. There's only light and energy and love and positivity and bliss. So that might be part of how a person can tell the difference. If you're in that place and you feel like you can talk or hear people, then you're not quite there. In theta state, you're very, very comfortable, relaxed, peaceful, and the bliss starts moving in. I think the more you do it, the more it moves in. And then there are specifics in how we teach it, that there are specific things you might see and recognize that will tell you more.
That's wonderful. Now, you also teach access bars. Lynne, what is access bars?
Access Consciousness is a program that includes access bars, created by Gary Douglas from San Diego area of California. It is channeled information, and he teaches worldwide. What I like about access bars is it's not necessary to talk when you do it. With Theta Healing, we need to talk. With access bars, there are 32 points on the head. There are charts on my website that show this. 32 points on the head that we hold them, cause them to activate, and they do the healing work themselves. So it covers control, money, creating, sadness, grief, body issues. And they say it goes back to releasing stuff up to like 50,000 years. So from who you ever have been, you can be freed of that. Lay on a massage table. We do the technique, say for an hour or so, and stuff just gets cleared. People tend to fall asleep. If they wake up or rouse themselves, and it's as if they've had a fabulous massage. But even more has happened than that. So I like that for techniques that for clients that are particularly anxious. It's a good technique for that. I teach that one also. That one you get certified in one day. Theta Healing classes, a lot of the classes are 3 days, some are 2, some are 1. So Access is a really nice other tool. I can run my husband's bars while he watches a movie. You know? It's so easy. I'd like to see it in more spas because people benefit from the body work, of course, but with this kind of work, in addition to their body work, whole life changes.
Right. That sounds very similar to, I teach Touch for Health, and I do neurovascular holding points, where we're holding points in the head, which balance the emotional aspects of all the acupuncture meridians, as well as the cranial system. And craniosacral therapy is very similar to what you're talking about also. So they're all involving points on the head. Now, your website, cockrum-murphy.com, what sort of great information are people going to find on your website?
Good question. And also that Cockrum-Murphy is hyphenated. You have to have the hyphen in there to find it. You can sign up for my newsletter.
Can you spell your name for everyone?
Oh, sure. Lynne, Lynne, Cockrum, COCKRUM hyphen Murphy, MURPHY. So you can sign up for my newsletter. Those go out monthly. They usually have an article that I've written on a topic like, are you an empath? How do you deal with being in crowds? The one I wrote and sent out yesterday was suffering. It's actually a choice. So you also will find on the front page access to a bunch of freebies, so guided meditations, but also the package that I put together of about 14 videos based upon Unfolding the Mystery of Self, I created a class. I've taught the class in person in Phoenix, but other people can't access that. So I put it on the web. So they're professionally done videos. There's a lot of free components that you can access to see if you want to purchase it. But it's only $98, $89. One of those two numbers in one direction or the other. So there's that. There's the newsletters. There's the freebies. There are guided meditations. There's access to the books. A schedule of all my classes that I'm offering and when and what they are and what they cost. And then also very easy to contact me through the website. If you want to ask a question or do a session, also do half-hour sessions. Sometimes when a person wants mediumship and to talk to a relative, they don't need to get information for an hour. A half hour is good. So I'm pretty flexible that way.
You've been listening to Lynne Cockrum-Murphy, Theta Healing instructor and Amazon #1 best-selling author. This is Catherine Carrigan with the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm a medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, sign up for my free newsletters. You're going to get a lot of great stuff, including coupons for discounts on my sessions. And remember, when you go into a deep theta healing state, magic happens. You lift your vibration, you get in touch with your guidance, and natural healing occurs. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.